there, a potential problem there, and so I would assume that you will be evacuating that facility sometime no later than, say, midnight or so.
You know, you mentioned earlier the first time we'd had a major hurricane like this one here was in the 1940s. Back in the 1940s, a lot of these islands that we're on right now didn't exist because these things are man-made. What do you make of this?
Well, indeed, that's how a lot of that land was sold out there. It got all that beautiful water around it. You just put this little sort of seawall up there and pump the land in behind it. Had a beautiful way of life there until hurricanes come along.
What does that mean, though, if this hurricane comes along? I mentioned earlier it's untested. For the most part, it is, correct?
The water will come across into those areas. If you get that 8 to 10 feet of rise, maybe even 12 to 14 some parts of Biscayne Bay, indeed the Star Islands and some of the others there, you'll be getting some of that water across those small islands.
Yeah, and that's a situation I think everybody's most concerned about because we don't know what's going to happen. Have you gotten any indication out of what's been going on in the Bahamas, exactly what kind of storm surge we can expect?
Well, they get over there a little less than we would get in some of these situations. Now, a lot of those little islands are sort of tucked in behind the big island of Miami Beach, and so they don't have a long time for the water to build up, and that's the good part. It's the ones that set out and have a big stretch of Biscayne Bay down there. So the larger rises in Biscayne Bay are actually going to be down in the south zone probably as compared to up in around the Star Island area.
Yeah, we shall see how well man made those islands. That would probably be the true test, wouldn't it?
Well, it's not going to have a long period of wave action. See, it's the wave action that erodes away and destroys seawalls, and since this hurricane is moving along at a fairly steady speed, you're not going to have a long period of that wave action, and so they may stand up fairly well as far as permanent damage is concerned. The whole rise could take place and water come across, perhaps not destroy the seawalls that are there holding the land behind.
We sure hope so. Thank you very much, Dr. Bob Sheets from the National Hurricane Center.
What have we learned from these conversations with Michael Williams and Dr. Bob Sheets? Well, if the hurricane stays on this present course, we already have the timetable. You have an idea now of when it's actually going to make land. But we now also know that if it stays on this exact course, those of us north of the eye, and that looks like it's going to include Miami, Hialeah, certainly Fort Lauderdale, probably some parts of South Dade and Kendall, probably are going to be feeling a pretty good effect. Some of the higher, bigger, more intensive winds. Those south of the eye, that looks, if you continue that course again, like Homestead, Florida City, Key Largo, are not going to have as intensive winds. That doesn't mean you're not going to be in a hurricane. You most certainly are. Winds of 80 and 90 miles an hour, as Michael explained, that is definitely a hurricane. However, you may not get the same kind of winds that we're going to be experiencing up here in the north. And again, that's if the hurricane stays on that westerly track that it happens to be on right now, and that is not a positive. That could definitely change. Just drawing scenarios for you right now as we approach the bewitching hour.
Yeah, and of course,